It starts with the smell, not oil and grease, not always. Sometimes it's the sharp tang of coolant, the faint sweetness of transmission fluid, or the specific ozone scent of a complex electrical diagnostic running. My shop, the one I built from a concrete shell and sheer stubbornness over the last 10 years, has its own ecosystem of smells and sounds. The whine of an impact wrench, the steady click of a torque wrench reaching spec, the low hum of the diagnostic servers processing data from a car that's more computer than metal these days. This is my world. Ben, last name Independent Auto, specializing in imports, diagnostics, and the kind of problems that make dealership service advisors sigh and quote ridiculous hours. Building this place wasn't easy. Started with basic tools I inherited and a loan I barely qualified for. Worked 16-hour days, reinvested every penny. Now, we have 4 bays, top-of-the-line diagnostic rigs for almost every major European and Asian brand, a Hunter alignment rack that cost more than my first car, and a reputation locally for being the place you go when nobody else can figure it out. It's profitable. More than profitable, honestly. Enough that I live comfortably, own my house outright, and could probably afford some flashy status symbols if I cared, which I don't. My work truck is reliable and clean. My personal car is a meticulously maintained older BMW I rebuilt myself, and my satisfaction comes from nailing a diagnosis or bringing a complex machine back to perfect running order, not from the logo on the grill. That's probably where the first disconnect started with Megan. We met through a mutual friend about 2 years ago. She's sharp, works in high-level marketing, travels in circles completely different from mine. Initially, she said she found my job fascinating, refreshingly real compared to her corporate world. We clicked on other things, hiking, live music, a shared dark sense of humor. Things were good, really good. Good enough that 6 months ago I asked her to marry me. She said yes. Her background is different. Old money on her mother Kate's side, new money from her father William's success in finance. They live in that part of town, the one with the sprawling houses behind landscaped berms and private security patrols. My folks are working class, retired teachers and a union electrician. Good people, salt of the earth, but definitely intimidated by Megan's family from the outset. The first meeting was at their place. Christmas. Last year. Walking into their house felt like walking onto a magazine set. Everything was shades of white and beige, professionally decorated, art on the walls that probably cost more than my shop's annual insurance premium. William greeted me with a handshake that felt like an evaluation, his eyes scanning me head to toe. Kate offered a tight smile and air kisses near my cheeks. Brittany, Megan's younger sister who works in something equally vague and corporate-sounding, sort of waved from across the cavernous living room. The small talk was excruciating. It revolved entirely around things I had zero connection to. Summering in the Hamptons, complaining about the membership fees at their golf club, dissecting the internal politics at William's firm, debating the merits of different elite boarding schools for Brittany's hypothetical future children. I tried to chime in when I could, but my anecdotes about troubleshooting a bizarre CAN bus issue on a Porsche or finally sourcing a rare part for a vintage Alfa Romeo were met with blank stares or polite, vacant smiles. Then came the direct inquiries, phrased as polite curiosity but feeling more like an interrogation. William, swirling a ridiculously large glass of red wine, cornered me near the oversized fireplace. "So, Megan tells us you're a mechanic, Ben. Fascinating. Tell me." He leaned in slightly, dropping his voice conspiratorially. "Can one really make a proper living doing that these days? With all the automation and whatnot?" I explained that modern cars require more complex diagnostic skills than ever, that independent specialists often handle work dealerships avoid. And yes, it's a viable and often lucrative profession if you're good and manage your business well. He just nodded slowly, a skeptical look on his face. Interesting. Later, Kate pulled Megan and me aside ostensibly to admire the Christmas tree. "Ben," she said, her voice syrupy sweet, "you must have such strong hands from all that manual labor." She glanced down at my hands. Clean, but with the unavoidable faint stains and calluses that never fully fade. "And your clothes. So practical. I was wearing decent chinos and a button-down shirt. Nothing fancy, but certainly presentable. Compared to their cashmere and tailored suits, I suppose it looked like a uniform. The worst part was the deliberate exclusion. They'd launch into detailed discussions about obscure European travel destinations or reminisce about college days at Ivy League schools, peppering the conversation with names and places designed to highlight their shared history and my otherness. I felt like an anthropologist observing a strange, inaccessible tribe. Megan would occasionally try to loop me in. Ben enjoys hiking too, Dad. But the conversation would quickly drift back to their preferred territory. I spent most of the evening nursing a club soda and feeling like a spare part. Afterwards, in the car, Megan sighed. They're a bit much, I know. They just don't really understand your world. They didn't seem interested in understanding it, Megan, I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. Your dad basically asked if I could afford rent, and your mom commented on my clothes like I was the hired help. Oh, they didn't mean it like that, she said quickly. Too quickly. Dad's just clueless about anything outside finance. And Mom? Well, Mom's mom. She notices details. It wasn't an insult. This became the pattern. Incident, my frustration, Megan's minimization, or promise. Incident 2, William's birthday dinner a few months later, held at an incredibly expensive restaurant where the water probably cost more than my lunch special. The conversation, again, orbited their world. At one point, William's brother, Uncle Brian, started complaining about a weird noise his Mercedes was making. William immediately turned to me. Ben, you're the car guy. Maybe you could have a quick listen after dinner. Save Brian a trip to the dealer? I was stunned. We were at a formal dinner, celebrating his birthday, and he was asking me to perform free labor in the parking lot like some kind of party trick. I politely deflected. Probably best to get it properly diagnosed at a shop, Brian. Could be anything. Hard to tell just by listening. William raised an eyebrow, clearly annoyed I hadn't jumped at the chance to impress them with my grease monkey skills. Megan beside me gave my hand a reassuring squeeze under the table, but said nothing to her father. Later, the familiar refrain. Dad just thinks practically. He sees a problem. He thinks of who can fix it. He didn't mean to put you on the spot. Promise. I'll talk to him about boundaries. Incident 3. A summer barbecue at their club. More excruciating small talk. Brittany cornered me while I was getting a drink. So, Ben? She said with a conspiratorial grin. Megan says you're like amazing with cars. My check engine light came on last week. Probably just needs gas, right? She laughed, a high-pitched titter that set my teeth on edge. I explained that a check engine light could mean dozens of things from minor to serious, and she should get the codes read. Oh, codes, she waved a dismissive hand. Sounds complicated. Maybe you could just swing by my condo sometime and take a peek. I'll make you cookies. Again, the assumption that my professional time and expertise were available for barter, like a neighbor borrowing a cup of sugar. Megan overheard this one. Her response later. Jess is just ditzy sometimes. She doesn't get it. She means well. Promise. I'll explain to her that you run a business. Incident 4. Christmas again this past year. The gift exchange. William and Kate gave me a high-end car detailing kit. Sounds thoughtful, right? Except the card read, To Ben, hope this helps you keep things tidy. Love, William and Kate. The implication was clear. My world was inherently dirty, and here was something to help me manage it. It felt like gifting a vacuum cleaner to a surgeon. Meanwhile, they gave Megan lavish jewelry. When I opened it, William chuckled. Figured you'd appreciate something practical for the, shop. Megan saw my face. Later, they tried. They just don't know what to get you. It's the thought that counts, right? Promise. Next year, I'll give them a specific list. Each time the promises felt thinner. I started to wonder if Megan ever actually had these conversations with her family or if she just told me she did to placate me. Her loyalty seemed permanently tethered to them. Her desire to avoid rocking their gilded boat overriding any impulse to defend the man she supposedly loved. The frustration began to curdle into something colder, a weary resentment. Central to their entire universe of status was the car, a brand new, top-spec Range Rover autobiography, metallic gray, black contrast roof, enormous wheels, loaded with every conceivable option. It wasn't just a vehicle, it was a statement. They'd acquired it about 8 months ago, replacing a perfectly fine previous model. William talked about it constantly. Its commanding driving position, its peerless luxury, the way it wafted over bumps. He'd drop its full name into conversations casually, ensuring everyone knew he had the top trim. He was particularly obsessed with its maintenance. You can't just take something like this to any old garage, he'd pronounce, often glancing pointedly at me. It requires specialists, people trained by the factory. They understand the tolerances, the electronics. It's not like working on some domestic pickup truck. He'd say this knowing full well I specialized in complex European vehicles, often fixing the messes dealership techs couldn't sort out. It was a deliberate, targeted dismissal of my skills, wrapped in faux concern for his precious machine. Kate would chime in about how safe it felt, how high up she was, implicitly looking down on everyone else on the road. Brittany just liked posing next to it for her Instagram. The Range Rover wasn't just transport, it was the four-wheeled embodiment of their perceived superiority. The breaking point, the moment the hairline crack in my resolve became a chasm, happened about 2 months ago. Wedding planning. We were trying to finalize the venue. I had suggested a beautifully restored historic inn near my hometown. It was elegant, had great food, and held sentimental value for my family. More importantly, it was within a budget that didn't require taking out a second mortgage. We presented the idea to William and Kate over brunch. William wrinkled his nose. "An inn? Ben, darling," Kate chimed in, patting my hand with fake sympathy. "That sounds quaint. But Megan's family and friends are used to a certain standard. We were thinking more along the lines of the Grand Ballroom downtown or perhaps the Lakeside Manor. Both options were astronomically expensive, catering to the city's elite. Those places are way over budget," I said, trying to stay calm. "The inn is beautiful, and it allows us to have the wedding we want without starting our marriage in massive debt." "Budget?" William scoffed. "Don't be crass, Ben. This is Megan's wedding day. It needs to be done properly. We can help out if necessary." The offer hung in the air, thick with implication. My contribution was inadequate, my standards too low. "It's not just the money, William," I insisted. "It's about the feel. The inn feels like us. Those ballrooms feel stuffy and impersonal." Kate sighed dramatically. "But think of the photos, darling. Think of the impression it makes. Your family will understand." I looked at Megan, pleadingly. This was it, a moment to stand with me, to choose us over them. She fidgeted, avoiding my gaze. Then she looked at her parents, offered them a weak smile, and said the words that hammered the final nail in the coffin. Maybe Mom and Dad are right, honey," she murmured, looking down at her plate. "The ballroom is stunning, and we do want everything to be perfect, for everyone." Silence. William beamed. Kate patted Megan's hand approvingly. I just sat there, feeling cold. She hadn't just disagreed, she had completely capitulated, adopting their language, prioritizing their standards and the impression over our shared vision, over me. She had sided with them, publicly, unequivocally. In that moment, whatever remaining hope I had that she could bridge the gap between our worlds, that she could be my partner against their condescension, evaporated. It wasn't just about the venue. It was about her fundamental inability or unwillingness to choose me, to stand by me when it mattered. The drive home was silent. Megan tried to justify it. "It's just easier this way. We can compromise on other things. They just want the best for us." I didn't argue. I didn't have the energy. I just felt a profound sense of disillusionment. Since then, things have been functional, on the surface. We continued planning, mostly with Megan and her mother making decisions I no longer had the heart to contest. I threw myself into work. Long hours at the shop felt like a refuge. Diagnosing a stubborn electrical fault in a BMW felt more manageable, more honest, than navigating the passive-aggressive minefield of Megan's family or deciphering Megan's increasingly hollow reassurances. I started seeing the pattern with chilling clarity. The constant microaggressions from her family weren't random. They were a consistent effort to establish dominance, to remind me of my perceived lower status. Megan's role wasn't passive. Her promises were active deflection, a way to manage my reactions rather than address their behavior. She wasn't caught in the middle. She was firmly planted on their side of the divide, occasionally making sympathetic noises across the border. The love I felt for her hadn't vanished overnight, but it was buried under layers of disappointment and resentment. It felt like nursing a dying engine, still turning over but sputtering, weak, and destined to eventually seize. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my gut, that this engagement couldn't last. The respect was gone. The trust was terminally damaged. I just didn't know how it would end. I didn't know the universe was about to hand me a wrench, a dark road, and the perfect, terrible opportunity to fix everything. I just kept working, waiting for the inevitable breakdown. The call came on a Tuesday night just after 8. I was locking up the shop, the smell of solvent still sharp in the air after cleaning down the main workbench. My personal cell rang, an unknown number. Normally I'd let it go to voicemail after hours, but something made me answer. "Ben, last name Independent Auto," I said, using my standard business greeting out of habit. A clipped, impatient voice on the other end. Yes, hello, my associate recommended your service. We have a late model Range Rover autobiography, stalled, completely dead. Engine made some terrible noises. He rattled off a location, a stretch of County Road 9, about 15 miles out of town. Definitely not an area known for its amenities. Requires immediate assistance. Specialist knowledge essential. Can you handle it? The voice was familiar. William, Megan's father. The entitled tone, the assumption of priority service, the specific mention of the autobiography. It clicked instantly. He clearly had no idea who he was talking to. Maybe the associate who recommended me hadn't mentioned my name, or maybe William simply hadn't connected Ben the mechanic with the specialist shop he'd been referred to in his moment of need. A cold, grim sense of inevitability settled over me. I can handle it, I replied, keeping my voice level, professional. Standard after-hours emergency call-out fee applies, plus mileage and hourly rate for diagnostics and repair. Luxury vehicle surcharge is also applicable. I stated the rates clearly, a huff of impatience on the other end. Yes, fine. Just get out here. It's starting to rain. He gave me the precise mile marker and hung up without a thank you. I took a deep breath, loaded the necessary diagnostic gear, a heavy-duty floor jack, and some specific tools I suspected might be needed for Land Rover 5.8 issues into my work truck, filled a thermos with hot coffee. The rain was already spitting against the shop windows as I pulled out, turning into a steady, miserable downpour by the time I hit the county line. The drive took about 25 minutes, headlights cutting through the darkness and the increasingly heavy sheets of rain. There it was, pulled awkwardly onto the narrow shoulder, hazards flashing weakly. The imposing silhouette of the Range Rover autobiography looking significantly less commanding now, hood slightly askew, steam or smoke still faintly rising from under it, mingling with the rain. Huddled near the rear of the vehicle, trying to use it as a windbreak, were 4 figures. William, Kate, Brittany, and Megan, dressed in what looked like expensive dinner attire, now damp and plastered to them. They looked cold, wet, and furious. I pulled my truck up behind them, angling my headlights to illuminate the scene, work lights on the truck bed casting a clean white glare. I killed the engine and the radio, plunging the immediate area into near silence, broken only by the drumming of rain on metal and the distant swish of a passing car. I got out, pulling on my heavy-duty rain slicker with my shop logo discreetly on the back, grabbed my main diagnostic tablet and a large flashlight. Then I walked towards them. Their faces turned as I approached, illuminated by my flashlight beam catching the rain. Shock, disbelief, horror. William's jaw literally dropped. Kate gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Brittany's eyes went wide. Megan just stared, face pale, rain plastering her hair to her cheeks. I stopped a few feet away. Methodically, deliberately, I made eye contact with William, then Kate, then Brittany. Finally, I looked at Megan, holding her gaze for just a second longer. The air felt thick with unspoken words, accusations, and years of simmering resentment. William found his voice first, sputtering, pointing a finger. You? What are you doing here? I kept my voice calm, professional, didn't raise it over the rain, looked him straight in the eye. My job. I turned away from them then, focusing entirely on the disabled vehicle. Walked to the front, popped the hood latch fully. Thick, acrid smoke billowed out, smelling strongly of burnt oil and hot metal. Not good. I shone my light inside. A quick visual inspection confirmed major trouble. Oil sprayed over parts of the engine bay, signs of catastrophic failure somewhere internal. Definitely not a simple fix. I could feel their eyes on my back as I went to my truck, retrieved my diagnostic scanner, and plugged it into the OBD2 port under the dash. The interior lights flickered weakly when I turned the key to the accessory position. Multiple critical error codes immediately populated the screen. Camshaft position sensor faults, misfires on several cylinders, low oil pressure warnings logged just before shutdown. Combined with the noises William mentioned and the visual evidence under the hood, it pointed towards a major internal engine failure, likely timing chain related, a known potential issue on these engines, if not meticulously maintained, or if warning signs were ignored. I turned back to the huddled group. Looks like a catastrophic internal engine failure, I stated matter-of-factly. Likely timing related. It's not drivable. It'll need to be towed to a shop for teardown and major repair or replacement. William stepped forward, puffing himself up despite the rain dripping from his expensive coat. Nonsense. It was running perfectly fine. You probably just need to reset something, don't you? He waved a hand vaguely towards the engine. These things are complex, requires finesse. I ignored his input. The physical evidence and diagnostic codes indicate severe mechanical damage, Mr. Williams' last name. There's no resetting this. I looked around at the dark, wet road. Your best option is a flatbed tow truck. My service includes diagnostics and minor roadside repairs where possible. Major internal engine work isn't a roadside repair. Panic started to set in on their faces. Kate looked ready to cry. Brittany was shivering dramatically. Megan was just watching me, an unreadable expression on her face. A tow truck? William spluttered. At this hour? In this weather? It'll take hours. We can't just stay here. He looked at me accusingly, as if the breakdown were my fault. Isn't there anything you can do? Some trick you mechanics have? I considered it. There wasn't a trick. The engine was likely toast, but maybe, just maybe, I could isolate the damage enough to confirm it beyond doubt, leaving no room for argument. And it would take time. Time they'd have to spend standing in the cold, wet darkness, completely reliant on the simple mechanic they despised. I can run a few more specific sensor tests and attempt to manually turn the engine over to confirm crankshaft seizure, I said neutrally. But it won't change the outcome. It still needs a tow. Do it, William commanded, desperate now. So I did. I spent the next 45 minutes methodically working under the hood in the pouring rain, illuminated by my work lights. I disconnected specific sensors, checked fluid levels, oil was dangerously low and smelled burnt, and used a large breaker bar on the crankshaft pulley bolt. It wouldn't budge, seized solid. While I worked, the family huddled, miserable. William paced back and forth, muttering about incompetence, presumably the car's or maybe mine. Kate complained constantly about the cold and damp ruining her hair and shoes. Brittany whined about missing some important social media update. Megan stood slightly apart, watching me work, occasionally exchanging hushed, tense words with her parents. William tried to offer more unsolicited, ignorant advice a couple of times. Are you sure it's not just the battery? Which I shut down politely but firmly. The battery has sufficient voltage, sir. The issue is mechanical. The rain never let up. Finally, I packed up my tools, walked back over to them, wiping rain and grime from my face with the back of my hand. Engine is seized, I confirmed. Definitely needs a tow. I can call one for you, or you can use your own service. William looked defeated. Fine. Call one. I made the call, relaying the location and vehicle type to a heavy-duty towing company I trusted. They gave an ETA of about an hour, maybe longer given the weather. More misery for the stranded family. Then came the part I'd been mentally preparing for since William's initial call. I pulled out my tablet, tapped a few icons on my business app, and turned the screen towards William. All right. The charge for the emergency call-out, diagnostic time, and mileage comes to $2,985.70, I stated calmly, the itemized invoice clear on the screen in the dim light. Silence. Even the rain seemed to pause. William stared at the tablet, his face slowly turning purple. Kate gasped again. Brittany muttered, My God. $2,900? William finally exploded, his voice cracking. For what? For telling us we need a tow truck? This is highway robbery? Extortion? Kate chimed in, voice shrill. This is outrageous. Mark, Megan, darling, tell him. This is completely unacceptable. All eyes snapped to Megan. She looked trapped, torn between her family's outrage and the cold, hard fact that I had come out in the storm, diagnosed their impossible car, and was now presenting a bill for my professional services. She looked at me, then at her parents, her expression crumbling. She opened her mouth, then closed it, clearly unable or unwilling to take a definitive stance. That was all the confirmation I needed. I turned my attention back to William and Kate. My rates are my rates, I said, my voice devoid of heat, just cold fact. This reflects the emergency nature of the call, the late hour, the specialized knowledge required for this specific vehicle, the diagnostic equipment utilized, and the immediate availability that got me out here in under 30 minutes when your dealership service was closed and standard roadside wouldn't touch it. This is the cost of specialized skill, available 24/7, fixing problems others can't. Problems, I added, letting the words hang for a beat. You clearly don't understand or respect. I paused, letting that sink in. Then I turned to Megan. Her eyes were wide, filling with tears. Megan, I said, my voice still level, quiet, but carrying over the rain. Your family has spent the better part of 2 years showing me they don't respect me or my simple job. Tonight, You showed me you value their comfort, their expectations, and their money over my dignity over us. We're done. The engagement is off." I held out my empty hand, palm up, an unspoken demand. "Give me the ring back." The world seemed to shrink to that small space on the roadside. The rain, the flashing hazards, the stunned faces. Megan stared at my outstretched hand, tears now freely mixing with the rain on her cheeks. William started sputtering again about lawsuits and complaining to the Better Business Bureau. Kate was whispering furiously to him. Brittany just looked back and forth between us, mouth agape. After a long, agonizing moment, Megan choked back a sob. Her hand trembled as she pulled the engagement ring, the expensive one William and Kate undoubtedly helped pick out, off her finger. She didn't meet my eyes as she dropped it into my waiting palm. It felt cold and heavy. I closed my hand around it, then turned back to William, holding up the tablet again. "Payment is due now. I accept card or bank transfer." More protests erupted. Threats. Accusations. I stood there impassively, waiting. Finally, realizing I wasn't backing down, and they were still stranded miles from anywhere with a tow truck on the way that likely also required payment, William snatched the tablet with barely concealed fury. He tapped his credit card, punched in the details with angry jabs of his finger, and thrust it back at me once the transaction approved. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," he snarled. "I look forward to it," I replied evenly. I tucked the ring into a secure pocket in my slicker, put my tablet away, and gave them a final brief nod. "The tow should be here within the hour. Have a good night." Without another word, I walked back to my truck, climbed in, started the engine. Didn't look back in the rearview mirror as I pulled away, leaving them huddled together on the dark, wet shoulder beside their dead monument to status. The drive back to the shop was quiet. The adrenaline started to fade, leaving behind a hollow ache. Ending it like that. It wasn't triumphant. It hurt. But beneath the hurt was a profound, undeniable sense of relief. Like finally putting down a heavy burden I hadn't realized I was carrying for so long. The grim satisfaction was there too. The quiet knowledge that I had met their condescension not with anger, but with cold, hard competence. And then I had walked away on my own terms. The rain was letting up slightly as I pulled into my empty shop lot. The smell of oil and metal felt like coming home. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.